Luc Can Nien went upstairs to retrieve some documents and came back down shortly after. Aunt Tron, who was dusting a porcelain vase in the living room, paused when she saw him step out of the elevator. "Mr. Luc, are you heading out?" she asked. He gave a faint nod, walking straight to the door to change his shoes. As he picked up his car keys, he paused for a brief moment, his eyes glancing at the Qing Dynasty porcelain Aunt Tron was cleaning. Then, almost casually, he asked, "How has Madame been lately?" Aunt Tron immediately replied, "Yesterday she seemed much better, and today her spirits look good as well. I think..." Before she could finish, Luc Can Nien had already opened the door and stepped out. His figure exuded a detached calm, as though he had never asked at all. He got into his car, steering it towards the open driveway. Through the rear-view mirror, he caught sight of Kieu An Hao sitting beneath a parasol in the garden, picking flowers, her expression serene and content. His eyes softened for a fleeting second. He pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and didn't look away from her figure as the smoke curled faintly in the air. It wasn't until the cigarette burned down to his fingers, scorching his skin, that Luc Can Nien snapped back to reality. He stubbed it out, lowered the window slightly to let the smoke disperse, and pressed his lips into a thin line. Forcing himself to look away, he stepped on the accelerator, the car slowly rolling out of the villa's driveway. Meanwhile, Kieu An Hao had gathered a large bouquet of fresh flowers. Smiling, she carried them inside and asked Aunt Tron to help her arrange them neatly in a vase, which they placed in the center of the table. As she was washing her hands at the sink, Aunt Tron spoke again. "Madam, Mr. Luc just came home a moment ago to fetch some documents. He left right after." Kieu An Hao's hands froze under the running water for half a second. She only let out a soft "oh" before continuing to wash her hands, but the brightness in her expression from earlier had quietly faded. After a 4-day delay due to Luc Can Nien's personal matters, the scene between him and Kieu An Hao was scheduled to begin the moment he returned to the set. The weather that day was beautiful. Actors and crew members had already gathered in the courtyard of the filming location. Kieu An Hao, her makeup done and costume in place, stepped out and immediately saw Luc Can Nien standing there. As always, a quiet emptiness surrounded him within a 2-meter radius, yet the eyes of many female cast members kept straying in his direction. When the director noticed Kieu An Hao arrived, he personally went over to notify Luc Can Nien. Soon after, everyone was called into position. The scene for the day was one in which the second female lead, who had secretly loved the second male lead since childhood, came to comfort him after his girlfriend left. According to the script, consumed by heartbreak, the second male lead had drunk himself into a stupor, and the second female lead approached him with subtle, hidden intent. The director called out "action," and the cameras instantly zoomed in on Luc Can Nien. In the luxurious room, he sat dejectedly on the floor, his clothes wrinkled and bottles scattered messily around him. Gripping a bottle tightly, he took large gulps, his face etched with anguish. He embodied the role so completely that the cold, distant persona he usually carried seemed to vanish, replaced by a raw and palpable sorrow. To intensify the moment, he even pretended to choke on the liquor, doubling over in a violent cough. Then, unexpectedly, a single tear slipped free, falling soundlessly on the floor. Luc Can Nien truly deserves his title of King of the Screen, someone whispered in awe. Just that small act, choking, a tear falling, it felt heartbreakingly real. Standing beside Kieu An Hao, Lin Thiyi let out a soft laugh, her voice sweet yet edged with something sharp. "Miss Kieu, I'm sure you won't let down Mr. Luc's remarkable performance." An actor as brilliant as Luc Can Nien inevitably placed immense pressure on his co-stars. Without perfect coordination, the scene could easily collapse. Lin Yi had deliberately come to watch, secretly hoping the inexperienced Kieu An Hao would falter under the exacting standards of both the crew and Luc Can Nien. Feigning friendliness, she offered a cutting remark, her smile laced with mockery. "We're all truly looking forward to your next performance." The others around nodded in agreement, their gazes curious and expectant. Kieu An Hao caught the veiled meaning behind Lin Yi's words, but remained unbothered. She stood quietly, her expression calm, until the director finally called her name. In an instant, she stepped into character and hurried into the room where Luc Can Nien lay. "Lust," she called his name urgently, dropping to her knees as she wrestled the liquor bottle from his grasp. With effort, she tried to pull him onto the sofa, her movements laced with worry. She took a wet towel and gently wiped his face. As her eyes fell on his anguished expression, memories of his cold words echoed painfully in her mind. "The woman I love will never be you." A wave of sorrow arose within her, filling her gaze with unspoken heartache. She had always loved him, but had never dared to show it. Only here, within the confines of the script, could she let her true feelings slip through. So she poured herself fully into the role, her performance flawless, yet tinged with the rawness of her hidden emotions. Her fingers brushed lightly against his cheek, her voice trembling. "Why can't the woman you love be me?" Fighting back tears, she lowered her head against his chest. Just for this fleeting moment, she allowed herself the closeness she had always yearned for. A single tear slipped silently from the corner of her eye, staining the fabric of his shirt.
The scene had ended, yet the set remained silent. The director hadn't called cut just yet. When Kieu An Hao's fingers brushed against Luc Can Nien's face, his entire body tensed. Though he tried hard to stay composed, feigning drunkenness, the hand hidden at his side curled tightly into a fist. Her voice was soft, tinged with sorrow. "Why can't the one you love be me?" As her head rested against his chest, Luc Can Nien felt his heartbeat grow erratic, his breathing unsteady. Then came a faint dampness seeping through his shirt. Was that her tears? An involuntary urge stirred within him. He wanted to lift his hand and wipe away the tear trailing down her cheek. But just as his fingers twitched upward, the director's voice cut through the stillness. "Cut!" Startled, Kieu An Hao quickly pulled back, hiding the sorrow lingering in her eyes. She withdrew from his chest, stepping away with quiet restraint. Luc Can Nien's hand, suspended mid-air, clenched before dropping back to his side. His gaze fixed on her, the warmth in his eyes fading into a cold, unreadable chill. Noticing his stare, Kieu An Hao's heart raced uncontrollably. She lowered her eyes and whispered an explanation, her voice barely above a murmur. "That last part, I added it myself. I didn't warn you beforehand. I'm sorry." Her words seemed to strike something deep within him. His hand tightened into a fist as a faintly mocking smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Once again, foolishly, he had allowed himself to believe that her feelings might have been real. The coldness on Luc Can Nien's face deepened. Without a word, he abruptly pushed past Kieu An Hao and stood up. He didn't spare her a single glance as he strode toward the lounge, leaving a heavy, suffocating silence in his wake.
Luc Can Nien had always been known for slipping into character quickly and leaving it just as swiftly. As usual, the moment the director called cut, he turned and walked away without a word to Kieu An Hao. The others, keeping a respectful distance, didn't notice the faint traces of tension lingering between them. The director reviewed the scene and immediately praised Luc Can Nien's performance. Then, turning to Kieu An Hao with eyes full of admiration, he said warmly, "Xiao Chao, that was outstanding. Apart from Song Shang-su, no one has ever matched Luc so perfectly. You nailed it in one take and with such vivid emotion. Truly impressive." Suppressing the faint self-mockery rising in her chest, Kieu An Hao gave a gentle smile. "Thank you," she replied softly, before turning away to retouch her makeup. Around them, murmurs rippled through the crowd of onlookers. "I didn't expect a newcomer like Kieu An Hao to act so brilliantly. No wonder Luc said she earned this role on her own merit. It really shows. She's not only beautiful, but also talented. She's bound to become the next big star." Standing a short distance away, Lin Fiyi heard every word. Her gaze darkened. She hadn't expected the woman who stole her role to perform so well, so calm and composed, even in an intense scene with Luc Can Nien. If Kieu An Hao kept this up, she would surely become the center of attention in the entertainment world. For years, Lin Fiyi had endured, waiting for the chance to finally surpass Song Shang-su. And now, just when she thought the path was clear, a new obstacle had appeared: Kieu An Hao.